and it's not the last, it's time. All right, welcome to our class. Glad to have you here, whether you're here in person or online. Let's open in prayer. Lord, thank you that so many people have imagined the scenes from your word. We pray that we may grow in your word through the observation and through the comments and through seeing what others think. We pray it in your name, amen. So my opening question tonight, has the class changed your perspective on any Bible stories, and if so, how?
Focus my attention on those events, what they represent, and seeing different interpretations, get a more holistic sense of what the story's about.
Okay, that's great. That's great. More holistic sense of what the story's about in detail. Yeah.
It's nice to see someone else's picture. It adds to your understanding.
Yeah.
You have a picture in your mind, someone else sees the exact same event differently. So to compare your perspective to theirs certainly adds understanding.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely.
And I wouldn't say that this really answers your question, but to me, the fact that some of these very famous people decided to paint pictures of things going on in the Bible just tells me that they were helping get the word out to people who wouldn't know or didn't know or whatever the case may be. But it was a medium of exchange, and I don't think that they were doing for profit per se. I know they had to get paid somehow, but it just made me feel better that they were doing that.
Mm-hmm. Actually, Bible painting did not make a lot of money. It's the portraits in that day and age. It's the portraits of rich people that made a lot of money. So often people are making these Bible. Maybe they're doing it for church, mm-hmm. or maybe some rich sponsor has asked them to do it. But that's not the big money maker. So they're doing it much more out of the internal sense. The other reason they're doing it, and this is key, is that many people are not illiterate. Some people are, and a lot of these artists are, by the way. I don't know if you've noticed that. A lot of these artists know Latin and are illiterate, at least in the common tongue, and so they know this stuff fairly well. But for a number of people, they are not literate. So their only interpretation of this story is hearing what the pastor says, or minister or priest or whoever, and the picture. So for a lot of people, it's actually also a learning experience for them because they can't read it for themselves.
I always also found it to be interesting that those people look so European, but then again, they have no basis not to be European.
Yeah. We're going to find, actually, the last guy we're going to do tonight actually went to the Holy Land.
Oh, gosh.
But he is some of the first, till you get to like the late 19th century, and the 20th century, do you have people going to the Holy Land? So you're right, everything looks European because that's all they knew. Yeah. And so like Rembrandt never went to the Holy Land. But again, some of your latter people, again, late 19th century, they start going to the Holy Land and seeing these things for themselves.
But using the Bible for the basis of art, it's not like they had a lot of other books to choose from either, even if they were literate. It's not like today where we have massive libraries and all these literary works.
That's true, although, and particularly, the guys in the 1400s obviously only had hand-done books. But you start talking about what we're doing tonight, like Rembrandt and going forward, well, they had a printing press by then.
Right.
And so they actually have a much wider choice of books because they have the printing press. These gentlemen we'll see tonight, actually, certainly all of them had their own Bibles. So it's a little different story. But again, not a whole lot of people aren't literate. Not a whole lot of people are literate. So I want to start tonight, and this is probably one of my favorite artists would be Rembrandt. And we'll take these in chronological order. Gotta get my notes. He is one of the greatest artists of all time. When he has made it into our English language. When someone is a master at something, we don't call them a Michelangelo, although people would probably know what you mean. We call them a Rembrandt. So he's made his way into our English language. He is probably one of the greatest visual artists in the history of Western art. He had a large workshop, taught many important Dutch painters. We have about 300 paintings of his today and about 300 etchings. They do not get the same attention. Etchings were like a printing press, like a picture you would have on a printing press that you would put in a newspaper. So you have a plate for it. And those existed, of course, in Rembrandt's day and long before Rembrandt, but he really raised that to an art form. He was looking at different textures and what he could get for background and for the diffusion of light and different types of light, different tools to get different lines. And he really raised that to an art form. So again, about 300 etchings. We don't talk as much about those. Unfortunately, his later years were marked by personal tragedy and financial hardship. He married his dealer's cousin. Her name was Saskia. And they actually moved to the Jewish quarter of Amsterdam. So he goes around talking to all these Jewish rabbis and Jewish people, and he gets the Jewish people to pose for his paintings. So he's very, very immersed in the Jewish community. In 1642, his wife Saskia died, and unfortunately, that's the beginning of the end for him. They were madly in love, and she died probably of tuberculosis. And by 1656, he declared bankruptcy. He went through a couple different nurses and ended up firing them all. Had one committed to an insane asylum. In 1661, he secured a major commission for the town hall, which he thought was going to be his comeback. And he painted this huge painting. It's called The Conspiracy of Claudius Civilis. And they took it to the town hall and decided they didn't like it, so they sent it back. And he cut it down to about a quarter the size and tried to sell it for what he could. He had 3 children. He lost 3 of his children. His 4th child, Titus, actually died just before Rembrandt did. So in the end, he lost all of his natural children. He did have an illegitimate child, but he was estranged from her all his life. The Bible for him was like a diary. He painted autobiographically. He always saw himself within the stories, and they really almost correlated with what's going on in his life, which I think is what you want good Bible study to do, right? To see yourself in the stories. He's the master of light and shadow. It's a technique called chiaroscuro, and he got it from Caravaggio, but he takes it even further.
So is this a post-Renaissance painter?
Yes, in 1600s.
Okay.
Yeah, post-Renaissance. And he's noted for his emotions, his attention to detail. He's an incredible painter. He died in debt, alone, really, with nobody else in his life. He's kind of a tragic figure for all of his genius and for all how incredible he was at painting. So my first painting, and this, by the way, this hangs in my house. I love this painting, so I have a bias here.
A general question, if you will.
Yeah.
Just because you sparked that idea. These paintings and the painters of them, were they religious people themselves? I mean,
Yeah, that's a good question. In the case of Rembrandt, he was Dutch Reformed, but he never joined a church. And because he had a couple illegitimate, partners or whatever you want to call it, he never joined the church. But he studied his Bible. He knew his stories probably better than anybody else. When you begin to look at his paintings, you're like, oh, he knew that detail. Oh, he knew that detail of the story. When you begin to look at the details, he really knew what was going on. So I want us to come back, and we're looking at this painting too. I want us to come back to the outline. And David, can you read that 1 Samuel 18, 1-4 for me?
When David had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was bound to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. Saul took him that day and would not let him return to his father's house. Then Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as his own soul. Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that he was wearing and gave it to David, and his armor, and even his sword and bow, and his belt.
So can anyone tell me what's going on with these, David obviously will eventually be King David, but who's Jonathan, who's Saul?
Jonathan is the son of Saul.
Okay, great.
Oldest son?
I don't know if he's the oldest son, but, well, yeah, no, he would be. Yes, he was. First son of Saul. And who's Saul?
The first king of Israel.
First king of Israel. Okay, so Jonathan and David make a covenant together. The content of the covenant probably is something to the effect of, we're going to be nice to each other. We're going to love one another, and I will do the same for all your descendants, and you will do the same for all my descendants, which David will hold to eventually. What's this significance here? Jonathan, the last verse, Jonathan stripped himself of his robe that he was wearing and gave it to David, and his armor, even his sword and his bow and his belt.
Well, that tells me he said, I'm totally subservient to you.
Okay, yeah. And particularly the robe, although the other things just sort of reinforce it, the robe probably indicates that he realizes David will be king. And he even says this at one point later on in the text. Jonathan is the heir to the throne, right? His dad Saul is king. And he realizes that David will be king. And he, instead of being his rival, he surrenders himself to David as king. So that's quite a move. People don't realize that. They're like, so he gave him the shirt off his back. No. It's his royal robe, and it just reinforces it. His armor, his sword, his bow, and his belt. So this is a huge move by Jonathan. Yeah.
What's the verse to mean? Like Saul took him that day. Who did he took? David.
Yeah. Jonathan loved David as his own soul. Yeah. In other words, they're having a bromance, is what I think we would call it today, right?
Okay. I was a little confused on the verse too. I said, return to his father's house. So.
Oh, that's Saul took him. In other words, David is serving Saul, and he's going back to his father's house. This is Jesse at times. And Saul no longer lets him go back to his father's house. In other words, he takes him into his company, into sort of his royal retinue, as it were. I understand the question now. Okay, everyone understand what's going on in that verse? They're great friends. So, Anna, can you read me that 1 Samuel 20? It's the second paragraph there.
As soon as the boy had gone, David rose from beside the stone heap and prostrated himself with his face to the ground. He bowed 3 times, and they kissed each other and wept with each other. David wept the more. Then Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace, since both of us have sworn in the name of the Lord, saying, 'The Lord shall be between me and you, and between my descendants and your descendants forever.'" He got up and left, and Jonathan went into the city.
So what's happening here?
Well, David is acting very subservient again.
Yeah.
He's bowing 3 times.
Right. And he's the one who's going to be king, by the way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at this point in the story, the context is David is having to flee at this moment.
Yep, David's having to flee. Saul is out to kill him. No joke. That's not an exaggeration. Saul is out to murder him. And so he flees. But Jonathan is sort of caught in the middle. Because, of course, his dad wants to kill him, but he's made this covenant with David, and David is his friend. And so they weep and they part ways. Friends sometimes have to part ways. And that's really what happens here. And that's what's pictured. That's what's in this picture. So I'd like you to tell me what you see in this picture.
Extremely grandiose clothing.
Extremely grandiose clothing. Okay?
Everything to me is ornamental.
Ornamental?
The scabbard, probably the sword with it, the fact all the ornamentation. I think that's something that's more designed to show you I have this sword than using the sword.
Okay. More to say I've had the sword than used the sword.
This is my sword. See it, look at it. You can't
Okay.
afford that sword, but I can.
Okay.
overwhelming sense that I get is, I guess from the background, it's kind of doom, gloom, kind of dismal.
Okay, yeah, the background, the background is gloom and doom.
Very dismal.
Very dismal. Remember, Saul's trying to murder David, right?
Yeah.
And so, as a matter of fact, if this is, and they say it's Jerusalem, it's not Jerusalem, it's Gibeah, that was Saul's capital. That's the darkness in the background, is all the plotting that Saul has done, and the fact that David has to leave. But that's a great spot, Wayne.
Any clue what the trinkets or whatever they are in the lower right corner?
Oh, I think you read about them.
Sorry? Oh, his armor and stuff.
Yeah, that's.
Oh,
What
okay.
do you think that is? I mean, look at it. What do you think it is?
Well, all I can see is what's shiny. So,
It's
let's see.
What do you think that is down there in the lower right-hand corner?
Armor, sword, his bow and belt.
Ah,
Could it be like a helmet with a plume on the top or something?
it's probably those are arrows, a bow and arrows.
Oh, the arrows in the quiver.
Yeah, arrows
Yeah.
in a quiver
Yeah. Looks like he's wearing
and a
spurs.
piece of cloth. Yeah,
Looks like he's wearing spurs on his shoes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, and this is what a royal person would wear not in Israel, but in Rembrandt's time.
Yeah.
So who's who in this picture?
David and Saul, right?
David and Saul.
Maybe Jonathan.
David and Jonathan.
Jonathan.
Which one's David? Which one's Jonathan?
Jonathan's in the green and David's in the gold.
Okay.
I'd say.
Okay. Is there any significance behind David being in the gold?
Isn't it he gave him his clothes?
Oh, he gave him his robe.
That's the robe. And
That's
the
the royal
sword he was
robe.
given.
And the sword
That's what I was confused.
and the bow.
I thought it was Saul first. And
Oh, okay. So the David is wearing what Jonathan has given him. In other words, and this is something Rembrandt does. He actually combines texts because he knows his Bible well enough to be able to do that. He puts more than one text within a painting. And again, this is not the first time he's done this.
Honestly, I noticed this from the very beginning, but Jonathan looks a little bit like Rembrandt, just a little bit. Like
Okay.
it's almost like a self-portrait compared
Yep.
to like the first painting you showed. Of
Okay.
him.
Rembrandt paints not every time, but at times will paint himself into the story. Because again, he paints autobiographically, and he sees himself in these biblical stories. So you're right on, Keaton. That's probably Rembrandt as the older Jonathan
Right.
here, holding David who's weeping. And you see the look on his face is kind of glum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the way I would put it. What else you see in here?
Are they outside the castle?
Yeah, they are. They're outside the city,
Oh, outside.
and as Wayne was pointing out, the city's there in the background. They're somewhere outside the city when this happens. So I want you to blow up, because you can do this, Anna, on your tablet. Blow up the detail on the clothing of David and the sword and that. Isn't that incredible detail? It's incredible detail. And you got enough pixels to really pick it up. When you see this live, the detail on the clothing, this is like particularly the bottoms of the tunics and the sword and all that detail is really exquisite.
It's like
What are
pearls.
those initials?
He signed it down in the middle at the bottom.
6'3".
Right.
He signed it.
That looks like it says either GP or 6P.
6'3".
On the skirt.
Oh, I don't know about that. I just know he signed this in the middle at the bottom.
Okay.
I don't know about that. 1642. As I was giving his biography, you remember what happened in 1642?
His wife died.
His wife died. Okay? So as David and Jonathan part, he sees this as losing his wife.
Okay.
And note this, if that's Rembrandt in the back as Jonathan there in the greenish bluish, whatever that is, then that's Saskia is David. Notice David's face is hidden.
Yeah.
He's got the blonde hair like she had, And I would say he is very much of, and this is my word, an androgynous figure. As in, you can't tell if it's male or female.
I've seen other paintings featuring King David, and it does seem like he's portrayed as a more androgynous individual.
Yeah, and here it's because he's lost his wife. And he's seeing as David and Jonathan part as losing his wife, as the weeping of losing his wife.
Since we've made that point, why is that the case? Why is that done with David? Why do artists depict him that way?
I don't know. I mean, I can tell you in this case, because David represents Saskia.
Yeah.
I think I would have to say, in individual cases, it's probably different. I don't know if there's a blanket answer to that.
David's thought of as smaller in stature too, because he fought the giant.
Yeah, could be, yeah.
You think it's made to make him be more heroic? Here's somebody who doesn't meet this big 6'4" king, stand back, get out of my way.
David versus Goliath.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
as the expression goes. Also, and this is particularly Rembrandt, you almost always have to look at the hands. Look at the hands of Jonathan.
Very pretty.
Yeah, they're really pretty. And Anne is able to see this in more detail. They're almost feminine hands, aren't they? Yeah, you're nodding. Yeah, they're almost feminine hands. And that's she's like a mother who cradles a weeping infant. Here, that's the quality that Rembrandt's going for. That Jonathan is actually cradling David in his grief.
Well, I would be surprised if his hands were all knotty and gnarled, because he doesn't have to work per se.
Well, sometimes Rembrandt does draw or paint naughty hands.
Yeah, but in this case, Jonathan is not out there with a hoe every day.
No, but he's a warrior.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
he's in the army.
Okay.
I mean, he fights. So that I don't think those hands are true to life. Rembrandt has put those hands in there for a particular reason.
Okay. Do you think there's a reason behind, because I doubt that this depiction of clothing is necessarily historically accurate. Is there some significance behind the style of clothing he's chosen?
It is. I mean, it is probably from his own day. The significance would be the gold. Of course, the gold of the David is to be the royal robe.
Right, but the hat specifically on Jonathan doesn't really come from Europe. It's more of a Arab sort of
and
attire.
that could be what he's thinking. He probably knows something because he's in Amsterdam, so he
Right.
probably knows something of international people.
All right.
He just hasn't been to the Holy Land.
I see that as Turkish hat. But,
Yeah, Turkish.
And that may be, yeah.
And what does David have on his head?
That's like a headband.
Yeah, were those popular then or something?
I don't really know, and it also might be something worn by a female as well. So again, David in this case is, as I was saying earlier, is an androgynous figure, really to represent his wife, I think, Saskia, that he's lost.
Could be perceived as a crown, could it?
It could be, although David's not king yet.
Right.
Yeah, he hasn't been anointed king. Notice the and this is something always to look for in Rembrandt. Where's the shadow and where's the light source? Remember, he's the master of light and shadow.
upper left area is the source.
Okay, upper left area is the
And you
source.
can see the shadows are towards us.
Okay, the shadows are towards us. So the light is behind the city, or at least
Right.
kind of catty corner to the city.
Yeah. Well, what that tells me is he wants your eyes to go straight to and lock on the two people in the picture.
Yep.
Everything else just happens to be there.
Yep. Also, and this is one of Rembrandt's innovations, is he in this painting has communicated emotion in such a powerful way that clearly this is two guys really sad, and David is just forlorn, and that's something that is really coming of age as Rembrandt's painting, and he's really good at it. Really good at communicating emotion. I mean, this to me, this painting just ekes pathos. You just look at it and go, oh man, oh, they're just forlorn.
Well, when you say that, when I looked at this the first time, the first thing I got was that Jonathan is comforting David.
Yeah, and that could be it too. Yeah, and that's and the hands probably really communicate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Jonathan could be saying, you don't know what you're getting into.
The other thing about Rembrandt, and not every painting, but when he wants to communicate a somber mood, it is a dark painting. Notice how dark this is. I haven't made it any darker on the, or lightened it on the using the machine. This is an extremely dark painting. Look up at the upper right, and there's kind of these curtains, kind of the edge of a curtain, and they're almost black, very dark gray. It's a very, very dark painting.
But at the same time, I think he's using the illumination. It's like a opening in the clouds. It's a cloudy day, and all of a sudden there's this opening, and a ray of light comes down and focuses on this scene, and that gives you the full feeling of what the moment represents. I guess it's just a moment in time.
Yeah.
And now it lives forever.
A crucial moment.
The screen painting is significantly brighter on those two people than on the paper one. He wants, that's what he wants you to see, is those two.
Right. All right, I love this painting. This is an incredible painting. He's done a great job. Anything else? We got to move on. We got 2 more to go. No? Okay, thank you. So the second one is a Van Gogh, and I think everyone knows Van Gogh, right? He's 1853. Let me advance. There we go. He did a number of self-portraits. He's 1853 to 1890. He's probably one of the most influential figures in Western art, as well as Rembrandt. Over about 10 years, he produced 2,100 artworks, including 860 oil paintings. And most of those were done in that last 2 years of his life, the 1888 to 1890. So his output, I mean, he's putting out, like, in a day or two, he's putting out another painting and another painting and another painting. I don't know if we can picture that kind of pace. He's got bold colors, dramatic brushwork, and what he did really gives rise to modern art and expressionism, and really he's kind of the master of that. During his lifetime, only one of his paintings sold. He is kind of the paradigmatic misunderstood genius, the tortured artist. You think Rembrandt was tortured? Probably Van Gogh even more so. He suffered from psychotic episodes and delusions. He worried about his own mental stability. You probably know he cut off his ear at one point in time and sent it to a prostitute. And he shot himself in the end, doesn't remember the incident. He neglected his physical health. He didn't eat properly. He drank, smoked heavily. Today, his works are among the most expensive paintings ever. These are them. He was also the son of a Dutch Reformed minister and a whole family of pastors. In 1877, he was sent to live under his uncle, who was a respected theologian, to prep for an entrance exam to University of Amsterdam to study theology. He failed the exam, and so in 1879, he became a missionary to coal miners in Belgium. He gave up his living quarters for the homeless. He tried very hard to identify with the people he was ministering to. For us today, we would say that's a good thing. Not back then. It was, quote, undermining the dignity of the priesthood. So he got fired from that. In 1889, he entered an asylum. He did it himself. He painted Starry Night there in the asylum. In May 1890, he left the asylum for Avurs, Paris. It's a Paris suburb. And he created 70 paintings, including the one we're going to look at. He's an admirer of Rembrandt. He really liked Rembrandt. And he was really the first guy to really talk about the use of color. And you'll see it here. He thought color had psychological significance. And really people today who do heavy use of color really pull it from Van Gogh. And I know I've used this. I preached on this about 5 years ago. I used this painting in a sermon. So Maybe for those of you who remember. This is the church out of Wars.
If it's important, it needs to be repeated.
Yeah, if it's repeated, it must be important.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. There is a picture of, let's see. That's the church. That's what the church really looks like. That's the same angle. So that's his model. It hasn't changed much. And that's what he painted based on what he saw. So you can see both of them right there.
Would this approach surrealistic?
It is in some ways, yeah, but surrealism doesn't exist, and nobody's doing this. There is no surrealism when Van Gogh's painting,
Okay.
other than what he's doing.
Okay.
Yeah. It will come later. So what do you see?
Who's that lady?
Bright color,
Great color,
bright
bright. And what color dominates this painting?
Blue.
The blue. And this, by the way, is cobalt blue.
Right.
And if you want to know truly what cobalt blue is, that's it. And he even says it. He talks about this painting, and he says he's used cobalt blue to dominate this painting. It's expensive. He was very poor. Basically relied on his brother for supplies and living and things like that. Cobalt blue was the most expensive color, but yet it dominates this painting. So obviously this is a very expensive painting for him to make. Notice, and I love this, notice even the shadow of the church. See down by the lady? That's that cobalt blue.
Yeah.
I've never seen a blue shadow, but Van Gogh has a blue shadow. What else you see?
Well, I'm looking at the painting, those circles on the top of the spire, and I look at their actual picture. You think those are supposed to be clocks?
Probably so. I guess. I mean, that's how people kept time back in that day.
Yeah.
They listened for the church chimes.
Yeah.
I noticed that with this contour, the lines are a little wobbly, but it's not a bad thing. I mean, it keeps the shape.
Yeah, he's drawing it not as it is, but they're kind of squiggly. Yeah, and that's the surrealism that's blending into his painting.
Okay.
And particularly when you see the model, you see the real one, and then you see what he did with it. You can really see how he did that.
Do you think this is a reflection of his mental state in any shape or form?
Could very well be. Remember, he's just gotten out of the insane asylum or the insane hospital, and this is the last 2 years of his life. And eventually, he will shoot himself. And he didn't die from that. Actually, he died about a day later from the infection. So essentially, the shot killed him, although not at that instant. But his mental stability is not the best. Is that a good? Am I putting it nicely?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The position that this is from, this is the back of the church, isn't it?
Ah.
If memory serves me correctly. And it gives a perspective of how he saw himself in relation to the church.
Okay. He could have easily walked around to the front of the church, right, and painted the front of the church. He didn't. He chose to paint this from behind. This is Wayne's correct. This is the back of the church. You remember in my sermon? Yeah? Had an impact. Yeah, this may very well be how he sees himself in relation to the church, because he failed the entrance exam, right? Mm-hmm. In his family of pastors. He has huge, terrible relations with his dad, who's also a pastor. And he tried to be a missionary, but he ended up getting kicked out of that too. So he has a bad relationship with the church, but yet he in some way believes. I mean, he reads he can read. He reads his Bible, things like that. So he's got a troubled relationship with the church, but it's not completely dead. And so, yeah, I would agree with you, Wayne. I think this is how he sees himself in relation to the church, from behind.
But sometimes the back of the church is the most interesting in the sense of stained glass windows. In the front of the church has got all the granite and the gargoyles, etc., of that time. But this is where the important stuff is in the back.
Well, but the stained glass windows from the outside are just black.
Yeah.
You can see them up there. They're not really significant from the outside.
What kind of church is this? Catholic church?
I don't know the answer to that. My guess is yes, because it's in France. So the probability is extremely high it's a Catholic church.
But churches, the front and the back depends on if you're inside or outside. If you're inside, the front of the church is what's the back of the church from the outside.
Well, but he's painting it from the outside, though. Yeah, he's from the outside.
True, but that's always kind of boggled my mind.
Yeah.
If you're outside, the front of the church is here, but if you're
Yeah.
inside, that's the back.
He saw the blue, and particularly the cobalt blue that dominates this painting, as a divine color.
It's kind of weird. You said he died 2 days after he painted this. So did they?
All I know of is 2 days after he painted this.
Oh.
It was he painted this within the last 2 years of his life.
Oh, 2 years.
I'm sorry, 2 years of his life. I don't think this was this is not the last thing he did. But this is in those last 2 years of his life. By which, remember, he's putting out probably almost a painting a day or every 2 days or so.
He must like this church because he painted it.
Well, he paints I don't know if he likes it, but he just paints. He's walking around. He can't afford a lot of models because he's so poor. So he just kind of takes his stand and just kind of goes around and paints what he sees. He's known for this, all kinds of stuff. He just what he sees around him.
Is there a significance that there's one person in the painting and it would appear to be a woman to me?
Look like a nurse.
Yeah, I don't know, David. I notice she's walking around the church, not going to any of the back doors, if there are any.
Doesn't look like there are any back doors.
Yeah, there may not be.
Could that be a nun, you think? The hat looks like maybe a...
Or a nurse? Didn't
thought
he
it
have
was a
problem?
nurse.
Didn't he have nurse issues?
Yeah, he's not under care right now. It could be any of those things. I don't know. I don't know what the woman is set to represent. So sorry, he didn't explain that. I did notice that the windows, if you look in real life, stained glass windows from the outside are black, right?
Right.
But notice in his painting, they're kind of that darker shade of the cobalt blue, as if there can be something there, because if cobalt blue is a divine color, but probably not all it could be. And I think that's a lot of the way he saw the church. Go ahead, Winston.
No, I was just going to add to what you said
Okay.
about his mental state. Tell he was a lonely person.
Yeah, he was lonely. Yeah.
Well, some of the detail from those windows, while they are black, he has the detail right.
Correct. Yes, he does.
So, do you think that this piece is a deliberate statement on how he views the church or the faith, or?
I think it is, but there's lots of speculation as to what a Van Gogh really means. So it's not like I'm telling you scholars think that. I can tell you that I think that.
Okay. In that case, if it were to be perceived that way, I think there's significance in the darker shades of the cobalt blue towards the top corners.
Yep.
It's sort of like that radiance, that divine aura sort of dissipates from his perspective almost, because it
Right.
sort of goes back that way.
If what you're saying is true, then notice that the cobalt blue is more brilliant around the church, and it's less brilliant as you go up in the sky. And as a matter of fact, that's quite the opposite of what happens. If you look at, if you're going up toward the sun, obviously, it's going to get brighter and brighter, right?
Right.
So that's very, very opposite. That's not reality. It's very opposite. And you can tell if that's where the shadow is, then the light's over there in the upper right-hand corner. Mm-hmm. So as you go toward the sunlight, it's getting darker.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he knew that. I don't think that's an accident on his part. I doubt he would miss
Seems
that.
very deliberate.
Yeah, it's very deliberate. I doubt he would miss that.
And the whole comment about him being at the back of the church instead of painting the front of it could be like a communication of how he doesn't feel very welcome
Yep.
to the church.
I think so. And he wasn't, unfortunately. Unfortunate for the church.
The brown almost, or beige, whatever that, it almost looks out of place. Is there some significance to that?
You talking about the beige of the church building?
Yeah, on the roof there,
Oh, on the roof.
that brown on the roof, there's just a couple other spots of brown. It just looks out of place. There's nothing else like that except a couple little dabs here and there.
And you're talking the brown on the roof on the left side, correct?
Yeah,
Oh, over
right
there. Oh,
here.
that's
And then
kind of.
you've got some here.
Oh, okay. I picture this at least as almost orangish.
Okay.
It's like a rust, or maybe I'm colorblind, but
That's fine.
if you look up there, it's almost a rust color,
Yeah,
like a
but
bright
it looks out
rust.
of pl-
I
It
can see that.
seems out of place compared to the rest of it.
Yeah, and I can't explain that, but yeah, no, but I'm sure he did that intentionally.
Yeah.
And it's said that he sees light where there is none. And so he brightens this up much more so than reality.
Well, I think he's drawing, okay, you can see that there's like a ribbon coming down, if you will.
Yep.
And behind it is another building which has that same kind of a roof. I'm tempted to think that he might be just trying to, instead of just painting everything one bland color, he's just throwing colors in to get your attention.
Yeah.
You look at that and you look at this. Oh, I didn't see that before. I didn't see this before. I think he's just wants us to see things differently.
And that could very well be, yeah.
I mean, I've in Europe, I've been to some of the big famous churches, and if you get on one side of them, they're very boring. It's just the same thing for hundreds of feet, just granite and whatever.
Yeah.
And you have to look at it from a different angle to see something different about them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And he does exactly that.
yeah.
Anything else? I think he's fascinating. And his work is fascinating. I think the more you look, the more you see.
Yeah.
The individual, and you mentioned his brushwork, but
Yeah.
there's so many individual lines, if you will. It's truly incredible. I mean, the bricks of the building, the individual lines and the different colors of the path,
Oh, yeah.
and the grass,
And this is something he is known for, is his brushwork. And actually, if we look at Rembrandt, not what we looked at was kind of that David versus Jonathan, that's kind of a midway Rembrandt. But if we look at the Rembrandt from the 1660s, some of his later work, he would just pile the painting on, and almost in a 3D way. And he's the one who really starts this idea of this incredible brushwork to give texture to the painting. And Van Gogh takes him a step further with his brushwork. And this is not the only place where he does it. Starry Night, of course, is probably the most famous.
The piece is almost
brushwork.
entirely texture.
Yeah.
but if he's cranking out 2 of these a day,
No, about every 2 days he's cranking it. Yeah.
every 2 days,
Yeah.
okay.
But,
But even still, I mean, just to have every one of those lines change colors, clean your
Right.
my
Right.
goodness.
And that's incredible. That's his brushwork, and that's what's one of the things that he's noted for. I'm sorry, Mike.
No, and when I look at this too, because it kind of brought I don't know the right word for it, but I get the idea. He painted this very quickly. I'm
probably
holding a
did.
brown brush. Okay, brown,
Yep.
blue brush, blue, 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 blue.
Yep.
So it's drawn quickly and hastily, if you will, which gives one reason why it's not so quote perfect. But at the same time, he's saying, "Look what I can do in 2 hours," or I can knock this sucker out.
What's the actual size? Is that up there closer to it, or is it more something like this? Like,
I don't know.
like the Mona Lisa's.
I know the Mona Lisa is like this little underwhelming small
not.
thing. I had never seen this live. This is in Paris, and I haven't been to the right museum to see this live. So, to be honest, I mean, Anna could look it up on Wiki and see how large that painting is.
What's the size?
You know what the size is?
So,
If you look it up on Wiki, it'll tell you, Anna.
The church?
No, the painting.
What are the dimensions?
He was asking the dimension of the painting, and I don't know the answer to that.
Just looks nice.
So while Anna does that, I'm going to talk about the last guy If you remember Sunday, I talked about, I used that, I finished the sermon with the painting of Jesus as the light of the world in Revelation, knocking on the door of our hearts. And I said, if you come Wednesday, I'll discuss this more. And look how many people came.
Well, you said a bad word, revelation.
Yeah, okay. William Holman Hunt, 1827 1910. He's, oh, do you got it? You got the dimensions of the painting?
29 by 37, so it's not that big. 3 feet high by, 10.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
That's like,
That's still pretty big.
I don't think I have anything that big at home.
Yeah, that's still pretty big.
By 30 something, 37?
Yeah.
37 high, 29 wide.
That's pretty good.
Okay, there you go. It's a lot of cobalt blue paint.
Yeah, it is. That's true.
So William Holman Hunt, he is part of what is called the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. And what this group is trying to do is to go back and paint reality as it is. Almost in a religious devotion and attention to detail. He was rejected from the Royal Academy of Art because of his style. Eventually he got in, and he had resistance from his teachers all the way through, and told him he would never amount to anything because of the way he painted. So much for what the teachers said. His works initially also were not successful. He was attacked in the art press. He was supposed to be clumsy and ugly, things like that. However, later he becomes famous for his religious paintings. And the most famous, The Light of the World, which we saw on Sunday. He did eventually have to abandon painting because of his failing eyesight. He painted this Light of the World 3 times. The one we'll look at is the 1850 to 1854. It's in Oxford, at one of the colleges in Oxford today. From 1851 to 56, he painted a smaller version for a Manchester art gallery because they asked him to do it. And then around 1900, with some help, because his eyesight was failing, he painted a larger life-size version. And this one went on the world tour, and lots of people paid to see it. And so it's one of the most viewed paintings in the world today. It hangs in St. Paul's in London. So if you go to St. Paul's in London and see this, you can say, I know that. I've seen that. It's actually this big giant gold frame. They got a picture of it. So this is sorry. This is what I showed you on Sunday. The same thing. So what do we see here?
Crown of thorns.
Okay, Jesus is wearing a crown of thorns. Oh,
And he's the light of the world.
he's the light of the world. I forgot. Let's read the back of the outline. Wayne, I'm up to you. Can you read me the back of the outline? There's that Revelation passage.
Revelations 3:20 to 22. Listen, I am standing at the door, knocking. If you hear my voice and open the door, I will come in and eat with you, and you with me. To the one who conquers, I will give a place with me on my throne, just as I myself conquered and sat down with my Father on his throne. Let anyone who has an ear listen to what the Spirit is saying to the churches.
Thanks. So we see the crown of thorns. Is that a crown of thorns, or is that just a crown? It's thorny? Okay.
And the sun or moon, whichever that is, serves as a halo, potentially.
Okay.
I think it is a halo
It is a halo.
It is a
Yeah,
halo?
yeah.
because it's in front of like the tree branches, which are behind them.
Yep, you're right, Keaton. It is it's not the sun or moon. It is a halo.
I love your point from Sunday that the door doesn't have a handle on the outside.
Okay.
So it's gotta be
No,
open from the
no handle on the outside. Thank you, David.
That's so cool.
And it's overgrown.
It's overgrown. Yeah, it hasn't been opened in a while, or maybe never.
Looks like there's fruit laying on the lower
Where
right.
do you see fruit, Mike? Tell us.
Well, from what I understand, this place, it's not totally abandoned, but it's not used a lot either.
Okay.
You wouldn't let fruit lay on the ground like that.
Okay, but where do you see fruit? Where's fruit?
Lower right.
Lower right is fruit. And those are, I don't know if those are apples or something, some kind of fruit down there.
Well, I'm going to guess apple. I don't think they had peaches over there, but
Okay.
it's like that.
Probably an apple or apples.
Could be, yeah.
Okay, why would he paint apples into the painting of Christ as the light of the world?
Adam and Eve, something like that.
The forbidden fruit of Adam and Eve. As in Jesus is reversing the fall.
Even though-
I think you're correct, Anna.
Even though Genesis never says what the fruit is.
Correct. Genesis, well, it's good fruit.
Yeah, but they didn't know that.
Yeah, they didn't know that.
You see his robe is so beautiful.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah,
And not so much the inner robe, although that's cool with the fold. Look at the outer robe.
Yeah, so ornate.
Yeah.
Well, he has clearly come back from the dead.
Okay, he's come back from the dead.
Clearly. I mean, he's just
Halo, crown of thorns, ornate robe
with a halo,
with the halo.
with the light, a very ornate lantern.
Okay, ornate lantern, light of the world.
Garden behind him? Is that a garden?
I'm thinking that when you mentioned the door, this is an enclosed garden. It's like in a
Okay,
courtyard or something to that effect. That's the outside world behind the door, behind him. And he's opening the door into the garden.
okay. He opening the door. What you mean? Jesus is in the garden, or the door opens
Opening the
into a
door
garden?
from the outside in, I think, or looking in towards the garden. But what's behind you, I don't know. I just got the impression that this was like, you see these gardens that are like in France and all that, surrounded by a big wall.
Yeah. Remember, this is the door to your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And how come going his bare feet?
Yeah. He's standing on holy ground. I don't know. I don't really know.
Barefoot.
He is barefoot. Notice something. Look at the sky behind him. Is it night? Is it sunrise? Is it sunset? What is it?
Dawn or dusk?
It's dawn.
Dawn.
It's dawn. Okay, a new day is dawning, or Jesus is bringing in the dawn, the light of the world. And as the morning dawns, he's knocking on the door of our hearts. I think that's what he means to communicate. The darkness is being dispelled.
If you blow it, his eyes.
Yep,
is
the Jesus'
like
eyes.
Speaking, I don't know. It's like just alive. The way. I think the painting.
I'm gonna take off my glasses because I'm old. Yeah. No, yeah. His eyes say a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool.
Well, he's clearly looking at the viewer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is something that artists do, and they've done it for years and years, even since medieval times. They have figures in the painting, or even just one figure, and that figure's looking right out at you. Or they'll have a whole string of figures, and one figure is looking out at you, and that is meant to draw you into the painting. And so, probably Anna, the eyes here are meant to draw you in.
Hey, I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
I can't get over how photorealistic some of the plant and vegetation look. I don't know if it's how this is printed, but it looks very, I don't want to say uncanny, but it definitely seems like something I could walk outside and find.
Yeah, very, very accurate. And I did lighten this. This came out really dark on the screen, so I did lighten this just a little bit. This one that you're looking at is not lightened on the piece of paper.
He looks sad.
You think Jesus looks sad?
Yeah,
Because
Somber.
we haven't opened the door to our hearts?
exactly.
Okay. And there he is knocking.
I kind of saw that as, are you paying attention to me? Now, if that makes him sad, okay, but I see a questioning look in him because he's looking right at me with a questioning look.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I think all that's to draw you in.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a draw. Notice up above Jesus, the star. You see the stars?
Yeah.
It's just dawn. There's stars in the sky, right? But on the horizon, you have the light. And by the way, that's how you know it's sunrise. We talked about that a bit before, but that's how you know it's not sunset. It's definitely sunrise.
Well, it goes back, it just reinforces to me, it's a new day. things are changing. Yesterday was gone, today is new.
Yep. All right. So we only got 5 minutes. I'm sorry. We probably could do this longer, but
No, it's fine.
so what do we learn from these paintings? And this is kind of when I say more modern, this is like late 19th century. What do we learn from these?
They seem to be speaking more to a viewer as opposed to a large audience.
Okay. An individual viewer.
Yes.
Okay. As opposed to a larger audience. Okay.
I mean, it doesn't feel like there's that much storytelling. Like, you kind of need to have the context of what these pieces are about. You can't get the story from looking at these pieces
Okay.
by themselves.
In other words, you probably have to be literate or be reading.
Yeah,
Whereas the older ones, it was more of telling the story for people who couldn't read.
right.
Yeah, I think that's good, Keaton. I see a much more profound use of light and shadow. That's one of the big innovations, I think, of all three of these paintings. Is all three of these artists are using light and shadow to a large extent. And these are things that you don't see initially, but when you look again and it's like, oh.
I get a sense that the use of light and shadow is a big deal in the world of art, because that seems to be a point with almost every lesson we've done so far.
Yes, but I would say this is more advanced.
This is more advanced.
Much more advanced than the earlier artists.
Is
and
it
much-
continuing to advance even to this day, or?
Art's really very different today than I think.
One name comes to mind that exemplifies that, I think, and that would be Thomas Kincaid,
Yeah.
the painter of light, and he's done some phenomenal stuff. As I have 3 of his hanging in my house at home.
There you go. But I would say for the most part, like I don't think postmodern art really. What they've picked up on is the Van Gogh use of color. There's a lot of use of color and kind of a lot of the surrealism. I think is a lot of what's in art today.
That's certainly how my roommate is a bit of an artist, and that's sort of what she leans into, is the use of color. That I really like her texture work. Like,
Yeah.
the textures are great, but
Yeah, and look at Van Gogh's texture work, right?
I know.
Really did an incredible job.
I like landscape art, photography myself.
Uh-huh.
And one of the greats is Ansel Adams. And
Oh,
he
yeah.
was asked one time, he says, why don't you have people in your photographs? I mean, he was more just a photographer, but he did a lot with it. And he said that basically there's 2 people in every photograph. There's the one taking the picture, and then there's the one that's looking at it. So you're there.
You're in the
You're
picture.
there.
Yeah.
It's meant to be something that you interpret personally.
That's a good answer.
All right, so next time, and I got to wrap it up, and I'm sure Dave and Mikhail are going to tell me this. See, he's going like this. We're going to look at it's an older piece. It's called the Ghent altarpiece, Ghent, and it is. I have done the lesson for it. It's exquisite. It's an older piece. It's from the 1400s, but it's a huge altarpiece. It's a whole altarpiece, and we'll look. So if you want to look ahead of time, you can. And that's what we'll do for our last round.
We're gonna do Thomas Kincaid too.
No, actually, a lot of his works are not in fair use.
Really?
He's a fairly recent artist, if I'm not mistaken. Am I correct?
You talking Thomas Kincaid?
Yeah.
He just passed away recently.
Yeah.
They had one of his actual paintings in Savannah at the Thomas Kincaid
So,
Gallery.
so I can't stream his stuff. Whereas this is well, not this one, but like the Rembrandts. Well, that's hundreds of years old, so it's
Yeah,
fair
it's
use.
in public domain.
Yeah, it's in public domain,
I think
exactly.
his stuff's pretty much, unless it's, but his one, it was $500,000 before he passed away. After it passed away, they took it out of the store and put it in a vault. They said they wouldn't, it was priceless, you know.
Hey, we need to pray. Yeah, Miguel's over there showing me. Lord, thank you for what we've seen tonight. Thank you for how it's enriched our faith. May you work these things into our minds that we may leave here changed people. Amen.